Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's a Monday morning with long holiday weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Celebrating Independence Day. We got Arkansas Razorback basketball news. That's why we're here on your Monday morning. I've got intel on several things. I think it moves the envelope a little bit, some of this information from what's already been out there and what we've already talked about. And I think a lot of it's important, mainly because as we look at Arkansas now, pretty much has rounded out the roster for 2024-25 season. And we're looking ahead. It's really heating up in the class of 25 recruiting. Multiple five stars that John Calipari and his staff are targeting. And it's more than now, to me, it's more than just putting offers out. Obviously, the staff has been on the road when they could in the spring through June for evaluation, which included Istanbul, Turkey. As you saw John Calipari and Chuck Martin go overseas to watch Team USA U17 in the World Cup, win another gold medal. Coaches were there for at least a couple of days and took in some of that. But we've already seen one visit, and that's where we're going to start with the first visitor back in May 10th. I mean, Calipari had barely been on the job a month, and you had class of 2025 Darius Acuff Jr. We've talked about him so much in the last two or three of these HogvilleNET YouTube lives, and we've gotten to a point where I've expressed that I see Acuff Jr. as having Arkansas not only on his leaderboard, but potentially, I don't have information on this, potentially already maybe a silent commit. Things can move so rapidly in recruiting, especially with five stars, that things can change on a dime. But this thing has been building momentum. I've talked about it. Some other national recruiting analysts are getting there. Trilly Donovan, by the way, who a lot of people, he's kind of got a cult following, recruiting guy. On Sunday, just yesterday, predicted Acuff to Arkansas. So take that for what it's worth. But really, the intel that I have right now is we've been talking about this and talking about it. And we've had no timeline. We've had no timeline on when he might do something. I've gotten a timeline. We'll see if it holds. This is from a valued source. I believe it. But things can change. But the timeline I've gotten is Acuff Jr. plans to make a commitment announcement after Nike Peach Jam, which begins later this week and runs to the 21st. So later in July. One of my biggest talking points is, could he pull a commitment this month? Maybe wait until after the busy July slate of, competitive basketball on the shoe circuits and do maybe August. Would it come later? I'm told now that after Nike Peach Jam, he plays on the Nike circuit, Acuff Jr. does, for the family, 17U. One of the more prolific scorers on the circuit, which says a lot. It helps explain why he is the fourth rated player in the country in the class 2025. Obviously a five-star, 6'3" point guard by way of Detroit, plays at IMG Academy in Florida, one of those top prep schools in the country. But look, or excuse me, not prep, high schools, when you look at it from a national standpoint. But here, now we have a timeline after Nike Peach Jam. So, I think the inference was that it's going to be soon after. I don't know if it's the day after, and things can change. I mean, he can announce it before Peach Jam. Again, Peach Jam starts later. I think on the 13th is when it officially starts, rolls through the 21st. Division I coaches will be able to go do live evaluations from the 11th through the 14th, which will have an intersection with the beginning of Peach Jam, and then they'll have to wait till the following weekend, the 19th through the 21st, and Peach Jam will kind of be wrapping things up, but it's a long stretch there. But not only have I been hearing now for weeks that Acuff Jr. has Arkansas at the top of his list, we're seeing more momentum with some of the national guys, and now I have a time frame. I believe that's exclusive. I haven't seen where else out there, but the announcement could be coming right after Peach Jam. And again, that gives us an idea that it's likely to be sometime here this month. Things can change, but players do this all the time. This is what the information is now. To me, the information that I've been gathering from really good sources I trust. I feel like Arkansas is the leader, and I feel like he's set to make an announcement fairly soon, meaning it's, you've got an early November signing period. So July, if the announcement comes in late July, that's sooner than August, September, October, even up to the deadline of November. And then a lot of players obviously, drag out recruiting and can carry it into the spring signing period, which that's in April of 2025. So this to me sounds like good news for Arkansas. The Hogs have been, targeting other players. We're going to get into that a little bit. But Darius Acuff Jr., I feel pretty certain at this point that Arkansas is the team to beat and is likely to get a public announcement sometime after Peach Jam. Again, what is after? I mean, it could, but I think the reason why that was a reference point and a marker is because it should be soon after that. Now, again, players can change course and things come up and disrupt everything. Sometimes who they think where they want to go to school, that can change. I put those disclaimers out there because I'm going off source information I trust. I believe it. But I also know the nature of recruiting. So we'll always come back and update. If anything changes on that. All right, we're nearly 6 minutes in. We're going to talk a little bit about more about Acuff Jr. and what that means, if in fact that's how it plays out. But I want to ask you to go and hit subscribe, like, share, all the things that help us out. We love bringing the content. Glad to be doing that and being with you here on Monday after a really nice extended holiday weekend. Really enjoyed that. But getting back to Darius Acuff Jr., you look at, just like I mentioned, he's one of the more prolific scorers on Nike EYBL, which is the best of the best. I mean, the guy was averaging, I think, nearly 23 points per game. When I went to Kansas City back in late May for the Session 4 on the Nike circuit, he was not there. He was with Team USA, the under 18 in the Mayor Cup, leading that team to a gold medal. And he averaged 18 points, nearly 5 rebounds per game, 4 assists. So put up really solid numbers in that international experience, that international competitive experience. I mentioned his numbers on Nike. This is just a well-rounded point guard. When I watch him play, he's just a crafting master of certain things. Like he understands how to get to spots, how to attack and put pressure on defenses, how to get to the rim, and then he sets teammates up off of his creativity. Now you say, well, that's what a point guard should do. Well, he does it at a really, really high level, and you understand. I mean, the 4th-rated player in the country, and so that to me explains a lot about not only why he's a 5-star, but why programs, because he's down to a Final Four. Not only Arkansas, but when you look at Michigan, when you look at UConn, and when you look at Kansas, I mean. That's a blue blood list for the most part. John Calipari's a blue blood. Arkansas, he says, a blue blood program. I'm with him on that. All right. So I mean, you understand why he's rated where he is and why programs are pursuing him. Arkansas's got right now. You've got, when you look at the current roster makeup, you've got 2 McDonald's All-Americans, one from the class of 2023 and DJ Wagner, Boogie Flan from the more recent 2024. When you look at that, and one or both of those players are likely to be off to the NBA. To me, Darius Acuff Jr., again, when we talk about, not only his gifts, but I would say he's a score-first lead guard. I would say the same thing about Boogie Fland. Wagner, I think, is kind of down the middle of the road on that, and maybe even more of a facilitator than a scorer right now going into year 2. So it's been a spoil of riches so far for Calipari when you look at his backcourt recruiting at Arkansas, and identifying young players. I think Nelly Davis is going to help Arkansas with one, the senior guard transfer from Florida Atlantic on this current roster. But I'm fascinated so far by the backcourt recruiting. I mean, all of Calipari's recruiting has been really good and top shelf. But this will be another McDonald's All-American at your lead guard spot. So effectively, if you land this guy, the 3 guys that are your primary ball handlers have all been McDonald's All-American so far. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Think about that for a little bit. I mean, because you have to, when you go back historically at Arkansas, they've had some really good recruiting classes, McDonald's All-American. I'm not sure that you've really kind of stacked that many McDonald's All-Americans at one position and guys that are all, future pros, and it's almost a no-brainer on that standard. So we're already starting to see some of the effects. Again, Acuff Jr. has not publicly committed to Arkansas. If it blows up, then, scratch some, you have to rewind and edit some of that. But that's where it looks like it's heading. It's a big recruiting win. It continues that recruiting momentum. It proves that the splash move from Kentucky to Arkansas and a good recruiting haul so far for the first roster is not just a not just one of those things that created excitement. And yeah, let's see if it's sustainable. It's going to be sustainable. I think Acuff Jr. will be the first player to help that. Remember, he took his visit again. Calipari barely been on the job a month. Took the visit in early May, and so first visitor from the high school ranks. And it looks like it's a player that Arkansas is going to land again. If something changes, we're going to come back to that. I like it now that we have a time frame right after, sometime after Nike Peach Jam. So let's see if that plays out. Let's see if he stays the course on that. This is not one of those situations where you can pin it down and say, well, that's definitely going to happen. That's the plan. And so plans can change, but that looks good for Arkansas. Now, I've got more source information on another player in the class of 2025. I did not tease it in my tweet or on Hogville.net on the board. I just kind of left the name anonymous, but it's not anonymous. With a lot of talk about Caleb Wilson, class of 2025, another 5-star. If you look at the composite rankings, Acuff Jr., according to 247 Sports, was the 4th rated player in the 2025 class. When you look at the composite, that's an aggregate of 247, ESPN, and Rivals. Caleb Wilson, the 6'9" forward out of Atlanta, very versatile guy, got a chance to be a plus defender, just really checks a ton of boxes at 6'9", very, again, versatile. But he comes in at number 4 in the composite ranking. So you're talking about 2 top 5 rated guys. Now, here's some intel that I've not seen anywhere else. Lately, we've seen a list from Adam Zagoria, first to report that in the fall, Wilson and his top schools are going to get visits. 5 of them: Duke, Georgia Tech, Oregon, Arkansas, and Tennessee. So 2 SEC teams in there: Duke, Oregon, and Georgia Tech, the hometown school. He's from Atlanta. I talked to Caleb over the weekend. I've got more from him on the Arkansas perspective of it. Again, this is intel you can't get anywhere else. He did tell me, look, this is not a situation where I just, sort of off the cuff, maybe visit, maybe don't. He goes, I'm definitely visiting Arkansas. Well, I've heard prospects say that. Many times it plays out. Sometimes it doesn't. He said, I'm definitely planning a visit. I got a little bit more information than just the fall. He said he's really targeting a football game. So, fall semester, when school starts back, you get right into football season. So it is consistent with that. He doesn't have a date yet. But here's the real intel. This is what I find interesting. I asked him, are there any other 5-stars? I said, I know how Calipari rolls. It's new at Arkansas. He likes to package you 5-star guys, you top 10 rated guys together. Are there any players out there you have a relationship with, that you're talking to, that you're maybe looking at playing together at the next level? And right out of his mouth, no hesitation, Darius Acuff Jr. And he goes, I believe he's going to Arkansas. At least that's what it looks like right now. And we talk about that. So for what it's worth, there's some intel for you. Darius Acuff Jr. and Caleb Wilson, a couple of guys where it sounds like they're trying to get on the same page. And we'll see. Again, Duke's in the mix. Duke's also recruiting the Boozer twins, part frontline, part backcourt. Relationship there, Caleb Wilson with those guys. But Wilson just really spoke glowingly about Cal in my interview with him over the weekend. I haven't put anything out on it yet, nowhere. So first I'm talking about it. Haven't even put pen to paper to write on it. Or I guess it would be fingers to keyboard and publish. But spoke very highly of Calipari. He said the relationship started when he was at Kentucky. He visited there. So Caleb Wilson, keep an eye on that. He was a guy back in May. Back in May, I had a source telling me that Arkansas was going to be in the mix at his top list of schools. They would definitely be there, and that he would likely visit. That looked for him to take a visit. So let's see. You know how weird recruiting can be. If the NIL money's right, if he takes other visits first, and someone convinces him, it may shut it down. But at this point, he's talking to Acuff Jr. There's discussions there. He believes he's also coming to Arkansas. So there's just so much momentum right now in terms of Darius Acuff Jr. coming to be a Razorback, and Caleb Wilson potentially. Maybe that would be part of a situation where it makes it more attractive to him. And now you're talking about 2 top 5 rated 5-stars in that 2025 class. Look, I saw rankings that came out the other day that were a top 25 of the best players, not only top 25 in the country, regardless of class. And I believe Caleb Wilson was in the top 5 of that. That's how good this guy is, because there's a lot of really good players in 2026. You know, some really good players in that class, but so very interesting. Wilson, by the way, I've got some more interesting nuggets. He said he spent June just working out and working on his game, and he told me countless hours on the court with 2 Lakers, Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And so you're talking about 2 very versatile guys, 6'8" and taller, and here's a 6'9" kid. You can't help but learn playing with guys like that for extended periods of time. And so spent a lot of time there. Of course, we know LeBron right now is in Vegas going through USA training camp, as he'll captain the Team USA that'll compete and look for gold in the Summer Olympics upcoming in Paris. But it was interesting to talk to Caleb Wilson. So I hope you got a lot of good nuggets there, maybe stuff you hadn't seen or read anywhere else. I think some of that's exclusive. It's good intel, in my opinion, because we now start to see what a game plan might be for John Calipari. Some of it seems obvious when we hear about these players having offers. And Wilson told me, he goes, not only am I looking to visit, he confirmed those 5 visit destinations that we talked about, but he goes, I said, are those definitely, do you consider that your final 5 schools? And he goes, yes. I said, so then are you then, if it is this a fast moving situation where you're looking to sign early? And he told me that remains up in the air. It's a strong possibility, but it's undetermined as of yet if he'll sign early. So again, you know, Calipari talking about his shifting of gears and changing his recruiting. Drilling it down from 6 or 7 high school guys each class to 3 or 4, he's had sort of a mixed bag and getting really good players to commit and sign early, and then some of it dragging out. I mean, you can't control everything. Some of that's just going to work out that way. He had a good mix of early and spring in this last class. 2 of those late guys that committed in March, Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, followed him to Arkansas. Okay. So the reason I bring that up is if you're drilling down the size of your class, maybe you part of your angle is to get everybody on board if you can by November. I mean, anyone out there saying, duh, isn't that the goal of every coach? Well, sometimes you have to, not every recruiting situation is the same, and sometimes you have to back off a little bit, listen to what you're hearing, and maybe players and their handlers are saying, look, we're not going to make decisions. So you got to be careful about the pressure game on that. But I do wonder then, how do you strategically go about trying to get your high school haul in so you can focus really as much as you can on your portal recruiting? As Calipari has also said, if you're subtracting and by half of your high school class, then what are you growing? Well, you're growing that portal recruiting. So you got to focus. You may want to put more time and effort on that when the spring rolls around, when the season ends, when that picks up. So anyway, I'm maybe saying some stuff that sounds like it's obvious, Captain Obvious, but I think it's interesting because this is something new for Calipari in terms of his approach and keeping his rosters to 8 or 9 of your top level guys. I think that's fascinating. I've got a new addition potential. I think he's going to be the next addition. I'm going to talk about that here shortly when we get through this class of 2025 recruiting, because I think we do have more to talk about. And I have some more intel for you. In-state 2025 guard, Cortland Muldrew. I've seen this young man play a multitude of times in a multitude of different platforms. Nike EYBL, here at the high school level in Arkansas. I've seen him in practice and workout scenarios. And very talented 6'3" guard, has really made a big splash with 17U Team Thad on Nike YBL in the spring, leading scorer on a team with a lot of really highly recruited players. And back in November, when I was on courtside to watch him go off, I don't remember how much it was, 40 points against the Bryant team loaded with really good players, and one of the best teams in the state, and Springdale Harbor knocked off Bryant. I think it was right on the heels of that performance, he got his first high major offer from Ole Miss. He's had several since then, and since its performances in the spring, we've gone through some of that. He's tweeted those out, but he tweeted out on Sunday, just yesterday, an offer from Arkansas. So I had a comment. I tweeted a reply. This would be significant. This is significant. And he's going to be at Oak Hill Academy in Virginia, by the way. That's where KK Robinson played his senior season. That's where in-stater Jalen Ricks went off to play, who was a Division I player and landed at Wichita State out of high school. And now Cortland Muldrew will be at Oak Hill Academy. It's one of those old school national programs for basketball in high school. All right, so he's going to spend his senior season there. I knew that Arkansas had interest in him based on what he did. When you go back to May on the circuit and on the Nike circuit. Now he's reporting an Arkansas offer. So here's where I'm at with that. I don't have confirmation. I've gotten a non-confirmation on the actual offer right now, but I do know, and I talked to him. He didn't talk to Calipari. He talked to Chuck Martin, assistant coach. He talked. Muldrew told me that, Cortland Muldrew. He also told me that he's talking with Chuck Martin about setting up a visit maybe as soon as August. Now, Muldrew projects as a point guard at the next level. I think he may end up being a combo guard where he's switchable and can play the two. He's another guy that can score it, and that's really his preference. So one of those another creative scorer that can set up teammates. I'm not going to say there's a ton of comparisons between him and Darius Acuff Jr. other than both of them are prolific scorers first when you look at a lead guard. Acuff Jr. probably a little bit, from what I've seen, a little bit more polished as a setup guy for others and a facilitator. All right. But so, he's reported the offer. He's talking to Chuck Martin about taking a visit in August. And what did we just talk about in the lead? We talked about Darius Acuff Jr. potentially making a commitment announcement right after Nike Peach him, soon after that sometime. Maybe it carries out of July early into August. I don't know. I mean, Peach Jam's the 13th through the 21st, but should be, as the plans are now, to be soon after that. So what happens then? I mean, do you still pursue now a top 100 rated 4-star in Cortland Muldrew? So we'll see about that. Again, he reported an Arkansas offer on Sunday. That would be the first in-state offer. Again, I've got a non-confirmation on the offer, but it could be one of those deals where you see, you're seeing what else is going on your board with the position group, and you're coordinating a visit to come in at some point, and maybe the offer's firmed up if a guy visits, and you make that. I mean, so we'll see how that plays out. So you've got some very interesting. I've given you some very interesting intel on several pieces of the puzzle. Now, I can tell you this: Arkansas. The words I've heard about their interest in Muldrew is that they're excited about him as a player. So there's that. That's that word, excited. That's where the staff is with him. So we'll see. This could be one of those momentum things. And if they do get a visit set up again in August, remember, July is a dead period for visits. I should have said that sooner. But when we were talking about Acuff, he'd already visited in May. And then you've got Caleb Wilson, the 5-star 6'9" forward, who's talking about visiting in the fall. July is a dead period. Coaches can go do live evaluations at these shoe circuit events, go on the road, can participate, evaluate, but they can't. Players can't come on campus in July, and coaches can't go and do offsite recruiting and visits. So August is kind of chopped up. Interestingly, there'll be some dead period, a couple of weeks in there, but the August 1st through the 5th, I believe, is a time where players can come visit, and then you've got the 6th through I think the 20th, something like that, where it's a dead period, and then the 21st of August through the 31st, then players could come back on campus. Remember, school will start, at Arkansas, in most places, most of it starts sometime there in early to mid-September, I believe. That's right. So anyway, when you talk about Cortland Muldrew, this is a guy that, to me, when I watched him back in May, late May is the last time I saw him play in the session 4, the Nike EYBL in Kansas City, he looked a little leaner to me. He looked a little longer. Maybe he grew just a little bit. but looked a legit 6'3" to me. And man, he's got a lot in his game. I said that already, but he's a player to keep an eye on. And again, if he's the first in-state offer, remember Terrion Burgess, also class of 2025 out of Benton. I think the teams in the SEC that have really prioritized him are Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss. When you look at Isaiah Seeley, another national top 50 guy in that 2025 class, former teammates with Muldrew at Springdale High School several years ago. And then Muldrew moved over to Springdale Harbor, now off to Oak Hill Academy. But another Isaiah Seeley, another player with multiple high major offers and interest and a chance to play in the SEC if he wants to. I really think when we dip over to class of 2026, a player to keep an eye on in-state that I think is probably right now the biggest priority in-state for Arkansas, even though it's 2026. So it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily see an offer right away. Is J.J. Andrews, although it could be just a matter of coaches getting back out in July and seeing J.J. on that Nike circuit with 16U on the 16E with Brad Bill Elite and maybe just see him a few more times before formally extending an offer. I do think this staff, from what I'm gathering now, has a range of excitement levels for in-state players. But I think J.J. Andrews, national top 15 according to ESPN, a 5-star in that 2026 class, 6'6" wing, explosive out of Little Rock Christian Academy in Central Arkansas, part of back-to-back 4A state title wins, and he was the MVP of last year's title game in March. I covered that game, and really you start to see. I mean, he was a key player as a freshman last year, and then as a sophomore, obviously. And you just continue to see he's always, to me, played the right way with all of his gifts. And now, when you look across the landscape of his production against some of the best competition in the country at 6'6", this guy's consistently pulling down double doubles. Terrion Burgess at 6'9" does that, but a 6'6" player doing it tells you just how active and how he's not kind of a one-track mind on, I'm a 5-star, get me the ball, let me go to work. He's doing all the blue-collar stuff too, and then again, he plays the right way. He gets off the ball and plays a good team game, and that's kind of been ingrained in him. He's done, and he's young also. He's one of the, Moses Moody was young for his class. I think J.J. Andrews is too. Their birthdays are a little later, and anytime when you look at evaluation, whether you're a college coach or a pro coach, the more you've seen a guy and he's a little bit younger than the guys you're comparing him against, it's always advantage. There's always a positive that goes with that. So I always keep that in mind too. And I'm looking at some of these prospects. Class of 2026, Jacob Lanier, now on 3 Sports, has moved him into the top 25 of its rankings. Had an outstanding spring. Arkansas coaches also watching him very closely. They like him as well. So, all right, you're getting a lot of good intel today, getting some staff intel. You're getting some player intel. Things are moving right along. We're at 28 minutes. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Here comes the second request. Please go ahead, subscribe, like, and share. We benefit from that, and I hope you benefit from the content. Look, Arkansas, the recruiting, like I said, for 2025, I know maybe fans are still a little bit, you're still in new coach mode. It's only been 3 months. It's been hard. 3 months, man. The excitement level is so high. I don't know that we're actually, time seems to move a little bit differently when you go and hire a legend, a coaching living legend, who's been a Naismith Hall of Famer for 10 years. And I don't want to, sugarcoat the fact that, yeah, there were some struggles the last handful of years in postseason, but everything else has been top shelf. It's been as good as it gets at the college level with John Calipari, and it wasn't just part of that Kentucky thing. Remember, he got to Final Fours and at both UMass and Memphis, and a title game at Memphis before ever getting to Kentucky. And so I think there's still something left. I wrote about this last week. Big feature article I did about the process of Calipari now, not just a job change. That was the biggest headline. That was the biggest story. But underneath that, and I think it might end up being a bigger thing. Is his philosophy change if he sticks with it. It seems, and I kind of started the article out with, genius doesn't necessarily add up to wisdom. sometimes they're mistaken as the same thing, and they're not always the same thing. Well, this is the best, this is the biggest, best recruiting genius of all time, in my opinion. And I don't think that's changed. And there was wisdom in his ways forever until it wasn't. It is hard to win. He's acknowledged it's hard to win in the postseason. It's hard to be the kind of team you want to be to win a championship when half your roster is made up of first year guys. Even though they've gone through a season, they've learned a lot. There's still something to be said. When it's win or go home in the postseason against some of these veteran, even mid-major teams you stack up against. The games just played. We know that upsets happen. They happen, seems like, more frequently, but they've been happening for, you could say decades now in the NCAA tournament, the big dance. And so he's making adjustments to that. That may be the biggest news because, look, again, 65 years old, 4 decades as a head coach, doing it at the highest levels. It would be real easy for him to be stubborn and say, look, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. You, you don't want to change everything. He's brought most of his staff with him. He's got player retention he's brought with him. He's going to have one more piece to that, I believe. I'm going to talk about that. Some more intel for you if you haven't seen it somewhere else. I haven't. But some staff retention, a heavy staff retention, some player retention. He's going to do things a certain way. But the idea that he's going to cut in half what has been his bread and butter, which is the 5-star high school guys, cutting in half the high school part of it. Again, I don't want to get into it being a broken record, but my point was when I wrote about this is that everything he said he's going to do so far, this current roster is a reflection of that. So he's put his money where his mouth is. But on top of drilling it down in terms of less high school, more other parts, portal, maybe more, try to figure out a way to have more retention and bring guys back because that adds to the experience of guys moving forward. But also, he's drilling down to only 9 true scholarship guys in this era of NIL that are going to get that part of that NIL package. The rest of it, he referred to when he was talking about it before, after he got to 9, he started talking more and more about what the 10, 11, and 12 guys would look like. And he used the word walk-on. They said, well, there'll be old school scholarships. And he talked about different things. And then my talking points until we see that play out. Remember, this is not a precedent that he's already shown as a blueprint from the previous place, Kentucky. This is something new. And I kept leaving the window open for him going and getting, okay, he says that, but maybe there's a guy that's not having big expectations on a starting role or a top, but a Kamani Johnson type of guy who's going to come to put the hard hat on, come in and work, and can actually impact things if you need him to and when you need him to. Or maybe there's a perimeter guy that can shoot the ball, a la Joseph Pinion, maybe not a top 30 or 40 guy, but maybe a back end top 100 guy that's got a little height on the wing. Maybe not a top 100, maybe 150 to 200. What is out there? What does this mean? Well, he's shown us what that means in these 3 players that we have seen announced. Over the last week or two? Well, there's a 4th that's coming. Now, the 3 players that we've talked about, Jaden Karaletwa, Melo Sanchez, and then Aiden. I've gone blank on Aiden's last name. Sorry, my apologies for that. The more recent player, Aiden, out of Mississippi, I think North Point Christian. I can remember the high school, and I've lost his last name. But Arkansas is going to add a 4th player. Now, those first 3 are actually on athletic scholarship. I've said that, to me, these guys are closer to being maybe a true walk-on kind of a role than someone that could be on the fringes of your rotation and maybe plug in there. I think of those 3, Melo Sanchez is probably the one guy that has the best shot at maybe helping you at some point if, in this next season, because he's got 2 years at Hawaii Pacific on the Division II level and a 40% career in his 2 years combined, 3-point shooter. 3-point shooting was an area that I identified could maybe be improved. Aiden Kelly, thank you. Is it Kelly? Okay, I apologize for that to Aiden Kelly, or if anyone. He may not be watching, but I just apologize for that. I don't like to do that, and I'm usually good at popping those names off. I don't have any paper in front of me today. Sometimes I do. Most of the time I don't. So I probably should have. I need more coffee and water. But Arkansas is about to add a 4th guy. Those are 3 scholarship players, technically on athletic scholarship. And I think maybe Melo Sanchez. Look, Sanchez, I didn't say enough about him. I think Fresno State offered him, and he was going to be. That's a Division One school in a good conference. And I believe they offered him, and he was going to factor in, or the plan was for him to factor into a rotation, and maybe had one or two other offers on the Division One level. So if all that's accurate, then maybe there's a chance here for him to. Hogs are going to ball out. Yeah, I mean they could. Acuff is a beast. Yeah, I mean, you know how recruiting is, man, especially with the 5 stars. I mean, something could shift, and we're talking about it, coming back and saying, well, that didn't happen. I just right now it looks all signs point to it. All right, and you got a lot of good info on here today. Hopefully you feel that way. I was encouraged by some of this stuff that I've gotten in recent days and weeks, not only on him but some traction with some other stuff. Some of it I can't get into today, but will very soon. I'll give you that too. That's not really intel, and people hate it when you do that. But I think there's some other stuff that's coming that's interesting. Yeah, right. So okay, so we're back to the current roster. We're back to the latest additions. So Arkansas is up to 12, 10, 11, 12. We went through the names. Someone helped me with Aiden Kelly. Thank you for that. And so now we move on to a 13th guy. This is one now I'm not sure when this will be announced. Arkansas has behind the scenes has done. Remember, I talked about procedural stuff when we were going through guys like Nelly Davis. When I told you he was on board and a silent commit, that ended up being true. Boogie Flan, some of those guys, they were behind the scenes procedural stuff that had been done. So there's another situation where there's a player that's been a walk-on the last 4 years at Kentucky. I'm told he's the half brother of Razorback transfer guard from Kentucky, DJ Wagner. His name's Kareem Watkins, a 5'8" guard, 4 seasons. So he's a grad transfer. So if you've been 4 seasons, which I looked it up, he was. That means you go back to that COVID year where they granted the extra year. So he should have a year. What I don't know is if whether or not he's going to go on athletic scholarship like the previous three, or if he'll just be a walk on and he's transitioning to keep continuity with Calipari and his half brother DJ Wagner. We'll say his brother now. But Kareem Watkins, a 5'8" guard. When I looked at it, there's not. I think he played a total of 29 minutes in 4 seasons, appeared in 20 games, 29 minutes. He didn't register a point, but I remember this, he had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in his 4-year Kentucky career. So is he a 13th scholarship guy? Does Calipari leave open a 13th scholarship to see if there's anything that he wants that could fall into his lap as a more impact type of player later? We know that Lawson Blake, the 6'10" walk-on, who's been at Arkansas for years, from across the street coming out of Fayetteville High School, recently reported that he's done because of injury, just sustained an injury that's going to keep him out. So he's done for this next season. And maybe, I don't know what that means moving forward for him and what his plans are for sticking around, or if that's even possible. So you wonder, is this also another walk-on situation in terms of being an actual walk-on with Kareem Watkins, or again, will he take up an athletic scholarship? The way that Calipari described what he was doing, does it matter? I mean, he said he was going 8 or 9 deep. He's done that with his impact guys, the guys that play. I mean, by the way, since we just recently, I think the last HogvilleNET YouTube Live, or maybe the one before that, but just very recently, has the Razorback men's basketball program start to publish more of these video cut-ups and highlights from practices, and we're getting a lot more. And what you don't see are the new guys. You're seeing the featured players. All right, so again, it's kind of like going back. Did we see a lot of Kate Arbogast or Lawson Blake making plays and highlight cut-ups in the previous thing, two walk-on guys? No, we didn't. And it's not to disparage these guys. We're still grappling with and wrapping our minds around a world where you really only fill 9 scholarships with guys that you have plans for. Not that something can't work out. Last segment we did, I went through the history of walk-ons rising up and having significant roles for Arkansas. Usually that meant that the roster was short. or there were injuries, and the teams weren't very good. So again, you got to understand maybe if uh, how some of this might play out. I go back to a guy like Melo Sanchez. Maybe he cracked some opportunities, a la Joseph Pinion as a true freshman. It helped Arkansas win 2 SEC games, Ole Miss and Missouri. Arkansas may lose those games without his contributions. As a freshman, that was the team that ended up going to the Sweet 16 and finished 8-10 in league play. That team goes 6-12 without Pinion. We're not talking about a Sweet 16 or an NCAA tournament, period. So you just never know who's going to help you. So I throw that back in there. But Kareem Watkins, 5'8" guard. Let's see. I expect him to be, do they put an announcement out? Is it one of those things most of these young men here have been putting something out on their Instagram? We'll see if there's an announcement of like that for him. So far that's been the trend. So we'll see about that. Could something change on that status or that situation? I don't know. I don't see why it would. But going back to the highlights coming out of practice, I want to spend a little bit of time on that. We're just hit 40 minutes. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Feel good coming into July now with all this basketball. Not only and we're going to talk Pro Hogs and the NBA Summer League, but these live eval sessions that start this week and carry through the next weekend. This is really the time of year where you got events out in Las Vegas, not only for Summer League and the NBA, but you've got a lot of these high-profile events where coaches will go out. By the way, Real Deal on the Rock, an annual event here put on by Bill Ingram, who's the chairman of the Arkansas Hawks. It's going to be in July, and it's on the last weekend of this upcoming, or a middle weekend of the live eval periods, the 19th to the 21st, and so it's Division I coaches will be able to attend Real Deal on the Rock. So that's all. That ought to be kind of cool too. In the past, it has intersected with some live eval opportunities for D1 coaches, and you've had some really good coaches come out. So we'll see. A lot of times they held it in March, April. This year it's going to be in July. So that's here at Southwest High School in Little Rock. But getting back to some of these cut-ups coming out of practice, you see more and more of the talent spill out into what some of these guys, you saw it when they were at Kentucky under Calipari. We've seen what Trevor Brazile can do at his best. We saw Jonas Adu. I saw him. I was there at Bud Walton when he came in there and hung, what was it, 26 points and 13 rebounds on Arkansas, something crazy, maybe 23 and 12. I don't remember. Had a great game, unstoppable. So we've seen we know what the talent level is, but to see it together on the same court in the practice facility, I commented to someone yesterday. I've been covering and been around Arkansas basketball going back to the triplets. I wasn't covering the triplets as a 10, 11-year-old, but I was pretty savvy basketball fan at that point, relative to my age. And through the whole thing, Arkansas's had great players, some great recruiting classes. We saw Eric Musselman just a few years ago put an exclamation point on it with 3 one-and-done 5-star guys. But that had never happened in the program. You're going to see it every year now. We're starting to see, just coming out of practice, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen that many potential first-round draft picks on a court representing the Arkansas Razorbacks. We're not into games yet, and I don't want to get over my skis and give a lot of hyperbole. I don't know. I believe, based on the way this thing's structured, Arkansas should come in preseason somewhere in the 10 to 15 range, and in the rankings is probably where I'd have them. In top 3 or 4 projected for a now 16-team SEC. Okay, there's question marks for postseason. I think Calipari started to address that with this roster build. Less high school guys, but they're really good, and then some program continuity and retention, and some really spectacular players in Nelly Davis and Jonas Adu, truly out of the portal. But having said that, just seeing them play together, seeing some of these plays, you're always, when you see highlights, you're seeing the best. And we've seen really good players at Arkansas in those highlight cut-ups. But when I'm looking at them, like, that's a potential first rounder or a draft pick in a year's time. So is he. The record at Arkansas for draft picks in a single draft was 4 in 1992 under Nolan Richardson, Todd Day. Then it was Oliver Miller, Lee Mayberry, those 3 in order in the first round. Isaiah Butch Morris, frontline player, off in the second round. Then I mentioned Musselman with that 2022 class, one and dones. Anthony Black first, Nick Smith Jr. second, both of those first rounders, Jordan Walsh early second rounder. That's going to become an annual thing. When I say annual, not 3 or 4 necessarily, but I think they're going to have multiple first round or multiple draft picks, and sometimes multiple in the first round, and it may be an annual thing, and we may break that 4-1 draft record. I mean, I think it could happen as soon as a year from now. So when you put those kind of players on the court together, you've built something that always gives you what you would think is a puncher's chance to win any game and match up with anybody. And there's versatility in the way he's built it. Now, people are going to say the guy won 1 national title. Yeah, but he appeared in 3 national title games, 6 Final Fours, a ton of Elite Eights, a ton of conference championships, conference tournament championships. I mean, it runs the gamut. National Coach of the Year, Conference Coach. I mean, these are all multiple things. Again, a 10-year Naismith Hall of Fame guy, or 10 years away, 10 years since he was inducted. That's how good he's been. All right, so I go back through the resume one more time just to remind folks. I think annual preseason rankings, solid regular seasons, all of the things that you see as a consistency with Calipari throughout his career are going to be consistent at Arkansas. And I think the Pro Hogs, which we're about to jump into, there were 12 of them that were on active rosters last year at some point in time. Most of that throughout the year. You're going to see that grow exponentially in these next 5 years. It's probably going to more than double in the next 5 years. Think about that for a little bit, because 12 is a lot. You have to go back to the 90s when Arkansas had so many pro NBA players. And now you're there again based on the work of guys like Mike Anderson, for the most part, and Eric Mulsman in concert. Now, Calipari is going to take it to the next level. So this is when I go back, I'm going to go back to Caleb Wilson, is one thing he told me that I didn't say, but it made me think of it talking about the Pro Hogs. When I asked him, I'm like, what's the fascination with Cal? And he said, great coach that's probably done the best job of getting guys to the NBA. What are we talking about? That's it. NIL's a big deal. Yeah, there's paydays now for these guys, but those paydays for these top shelf 5-star guys, they pale in comparison to what their potential is at the next level. They still want to be a one and done. They'd rather not hang around and make NIL money longer than they have to, even though it's going to be really good. The point is he's still that guy that does that. NIL doesn't erase any advantages that he had. And then Calipari's talked about how he'd like to restructure NIL and restructure some things now in a world of NIL, but it's not like it hampers him. And certainly there's enough money with his setup coming to Arkansas. This guy doesn't make this move unless he's got assurances that Arkansas is going to be strong there and maybe the leader. So having said all that, it sounds like I'm, repeating some old talking points, but we're still fairly new, 3 months in. We haven't seen the first product on the court, and we're seeing the future in recruiting play out right now. The future years, we know how sports are. It's not just about what you're doing right now. Everybody was locked in on this first roster. He started at 0. But man, I look ahead. I'm just like, I'm amazed. I mean, to see it up close in person, some of this stuff, it's like, man, we've not, as good as Arkansas's basketball has been, it's not consistently been this, top 10 5-star, top 10 5-star. I interviewed a lot of these guys back in Kansas City in May, and they light up when they talk about Cal and the possibility of visiting. There's more of these top level guys. I mentioned he went to Turkey to watch the FIBA 17 U17 World Cup, and a lot of these guys really have a lot of respect for him and may end up visiting in addition to some of the stuff we focused on today. All right, almost 50 minutes in. We're going to keep it to maybe less than an hour today. Gone through a lot of intel on the class of 2025. Not only do I believe Darius Acuff Jr. on a path to be an Arkansas Razorback, I think we've got a time frame now. If that changes, we'll come back and report that. But the time frame right now will be at the conclusion sometime soon after the end of the Nike EYBL Peach Jam, big event, July 13th to the 21st. I'm not saying it's going to be the day after or 2 days after. I'm not sure. It's supposed to be sometime after that ends, sometime soon. Maybe that spills into August something. I don't know. But that's the first time frame that I've seen out there, and I brought it to you. Caleb Wilson talking to Acuff about the possibility of playing together in college. He plans to visit. He told me that. Plans to visit Arkansas. Really likes Calipari. Went through some of the talking points there. We talked about Cortland Muldrew. We'll see if that offer is a committable one, if they get him on campus and go a little further with that scenario. And then we talked about so far Kareem Watkins, who I think will be the next addition, the 13th player on the roster. He would be. Is he also go on athletic scholarship since there's one to give, or does he remain a walk-on, which he was the last 4 years at Kentucky, leaving open a scholarship possibility for anything that could happen in the next 2 months, give or take a few days, and something falls into Calipari's lap. Remember, they're going through limited practice. Let's say someone got hurt, soon or now or whatever. I don't want to jinx anything or bring up, but that's why you might want to do something like that. So I don't know about that, but a guy that's been a walk-on at Kentucky, Kareem Watkins, for the last 4 years, and it's a grad transfer. We'll see if there's some kind of announcement on that from him anytime soon. But moving in now to the Pro Hogs, let's just get to it. Summer League is underway with the California Classic, a couple of days worth of games. And you've seen two Pro Hogs really, Mason Jones going into year 5, age 26, has mostly been on two-way contracts since coming in as an undrafted free agent. And what was it, the Houston Rockets in year 1 as a rookie, played 20-something games there as a rookie. And then it was Philadelphia later that same season that got him on a two-way. Sacramento has had him on a two-way, and he made a couple of appearances. Last year, I think before that, the season before, it was the Lakers had him in on a two-way for a little bit, and he appeared in regular season games. So he's one of those guys that to me has the talent to be on a 15-man roster in the NBA. It's kind of been about other stuff with Mason. Here's a guy that they're talking about's lost 40 pounds since April on some carb diet. I don't know, but carb only diet. But man, the guy looks the best I've seen him, and he is playing outstanding so far. And you always have to take summer league with a grain of salt. There's been great performances throughout summer leagues, and then when the regular season comes, these are mostly young players, and it's just not that it doesn't translate, not yet, and sometimes never. But man, so far out of the groups of teams, there's 8 playing that have played so far coming into today over the last 2 days. He's been one of the top handful of players, I believe, that I've seen. I've watched every game. I'm a junkie. I've watched every game. I found time to. I haven't watched every minute of every game, but most minutes. And Mason's been wonderful. And I think the thing with Mace is he was such a prolific scorer at Arkansas. He has such great belief in himself, one of those alphas. The further you move along in basketball into the NBA level, not everybody's going to be James Harden or Kevin Durant or the go-to guy. There's plenty of those that are bringing out of college to do other things, and they have to make adjustments. And I think one of the things, because he has such belief in himself, maybe that's been part of his journey to where he is now. But learning to do the other thing, do a lot more. But man, he's been shooting the cover off the ball from 3. He's been really good in the G League over the last several years. That's where he's played most of his basketball. I mentioned the two-way stuff, but he spent most of the time in the G League, and he's been one of the more volume-efficient three-point shooters, but he's got a skill set, man. He can be a lead guard, but playing a lead guard scenario. He does a good job of setting guys up when his mind's locked in on doing that. And he's done a really good job so far. And he's what I've seen him really do. He's always been, to me, at best, an average defender, most of the time below average. And I've really seen him improve on that end of the court. He's quicker now, and he's got a mind to it right now. You could tell that he's starting to get it, and he understands I'm going to have to be better at this end of the floor for teams to trust me and promote me. And the goal is to get a contract, secure a contract, and get off a two-way deal, and be on a roster. So far, so good from what I've seen from Mason Jones in the summer league in a couple of games. We'll see where it goes, but it's better than the alternative where he's stinking the place up. Nick Smith Jr. in year 2 in Charlotte, new head coach. So this will be his 3rd coach in 3 years when you go back to Arkansas at his one-and-done season under Eric Melsman since coming out of high school. But Nick Smith Jr. in a couple of games is not, he's really struggled shooting the ball. Here's a guy that led all rookies in the NBA last season in 3-point field goal percentage, just over 43%. He and Jason Tatum share an interesting stat. The only two players that are 19 years or younger to shoot at least 43% from three in a single season on at least 125 or more attempts. Because you got to have volume in there for that stat not to be skewed. So I mean, that's elite company he's got there. So far, not shooting great in summer league. Again, summer league doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you do like to be doing better than worse. But he's had some good floor games overall. When you look at he scored a total of 18 points in 2 games, and I think he's averaging 6 rebounds and 3 assists. So he's doing other things, and um, but today the Salt Lake City version of summer league. There's 2 more days, I believe, today or tomorrow. There's one more day, excuse me, of the California Classic. They're off today, and we'll finish up on tomorrow. Um, I believe that's right, or maybe tomorrow and Wednesday, the California Classic. But the Salt Lake City Summer League is the 8th through the 10th, so it starts today, and then you get into the Las Vegas Summer League, which I believe runs the 12th to 22nd, and every team in the league is in that, and that's the big one out in Las Vegas. And so, you get these 2 early ramp up ones, and you get a little bonus basketball. All of it's bonus basketball. It doesn't. None of this matters in terms of what necessarily translates next season, but we do see guys show here first in the summer, and then it kind of gives us a glimpse of what the future might hold. I expect Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh, I know is going to be going. Um, Ricky Council the fourth. Ricky Council the fourth, by the way, man, undrafted, signed that 2-way deal with Philadelphia on draft night. Made the most of his G League opportunities. I mean, put up big numbers in the G League, improved his defense, improved his 3-point shooting. It was dreadful. It was dreadful in Arkansas. Improved that, and then got opportunities when he was called up to the Sixers in NBA games, and was like his volume scoring per minutes was incredible for the time he got, and he actually had some meaningful minutes in there and some rotation minutes at times for various reasons. He earned a 4-year deal. He ended up getting a 4-year deal with Philadelphia. Now, I need to go back and examine that and see how much of it's guaranteed, but still, it's commensurate from what I saw the numbers with some of those second round contracts that guys got that were drafted. So good for him. But he'll be, I believe, in summer league. Jimmy Witt Jr. For year one under my Eric Patrick Musselman. I saw someone comment one day that they didn't like Eric Patrick Musselman. It sounds weird. I started calling him EPM and Eric Patrick Musselman. I'll explain this at the very end, I guess. We'll see who really cares about it. But Jimmy Witt Jr. on the Golden State Warriors Summer League roster, he is not playing in the California Classic, but will be with the team when the Las Vegas Summer League tips off. Again, that's scheduled for later this week. And then I think Stanley Moody, I expect to see him on Milwaukee. He was with Detroit, and he's now on a 2-way deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. Man, the Milwaukee Bucks love their pro Hogs, going all the way back to Sidney Moncrief. It's just a long list of former Hogs that have played in Milwaukee's organization. It's just been a great run for pro Hogs to go there because they've excelled for the most part while they're there. But we'll see if Stanley Moody I expect him to be with the Bucks throughout summer league or as we move forward, and we'll see if there are any other pro Hogs that pop up on the radars. So there's going to be plenty of stuff for Hog fans interested in that. All right, 58 minutes in, I'm going to wrap it up. It was Eric Musselman, it was Muss. Those are names. To me, Muss is a name of affection, and he's your guy when you're calling him Muss. And it's not that you don't appreciate what a guy did for your program, and the results are what they are. He had a great run at Arkansas. He wanted to be in Arkansas when he came. That was Muss. I thought it was just one of the more interesting scenarios that played out last year for a guy I knew for months, even before the start of the season, that was looking for an exit door. And I felt like he coached that way. I felt like the team starting from the top, which is him, all the way down. And so to me, I saw him maybe in a different light from that. It's not necessarily a level of major disrespect, but it's more about just a different way I viewed it. And so for me, there was a transition on how I referred to him. Some people may think that's a nasty thing to do. I don't really mean it that way. I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it more has gone from maybe being this version to now that version. Um, you know, uh, I'll give you an example. John Calipari. I would have referred to him as Calipari. Everybody knows they shorten it up to Cal. I don't think I ever said that until he became Arkansas's coach. It's not a homer thing as much as whatever you're drilled down to and whatever has all of your attention is on your radar. Maybe it changes things a little bit, and then when it leaves, it kind of goes back to maybe it's something else. So that was really what that's about. I don't know, but I wanted to dictate the narrative on how I referenced it. People can say whatever they want. Yeah, he still must. That didn't change. All right, we just rolled an hour, just over an hour. I don't know why I explained that. I didn't need to, but I did because I saw a couple of comments about it. But thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. The last plea: subscribe, like, share. We got a lot more to get into. There's stuff we didn't talk about today that we will hopefully soon. Maybe there'll be some formal coaching announcements for guys like Ronnie Brewer Jr., Tyler Eulis, some things that we're still got our eyes open there. We got a lot more scheduling stuff we want to hit. Maybe some of that stuff comes out today. Maybe it's already come out since I've been on here for an hour. I don't know. But until next time, thank you one last time for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. And then when we do come back, again, if it's something breaking that really matters today, I'll come back on. But until next time, I'll see you then.